Once widely viewed as a, quote, racist conspiracy theory and fringe nonsense, at least that's what the corporate media was saying, the Wuhan lab leak theory is gaining more support from health officials around the world, and now mainstream media is all but admitting it dismissed the story because, well, President Trump said it. Watch.
And yes, I think a lot of people have egg on their face. This was an idea that was first put forward by Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, Donald Trump. And look, some things may be true even if Donald Trump said them.
Yeah, you don't say. Joining me now to react, Dinesh D'Souza, filmmaker, best-selling author, and host of the Dinesh D'Souza podcast, which is on its 100th most excellent episode. Dinesh, great to have you back.
Buck, it's a real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, now the media, and he's not the only one, let me point out. There have been others. We just had that one guy, I think from CBS, but there are others that have been saying, well, it's not really our fault, Dinesh, that we got this critical theory wrong, or rather that we got this notion of where the Wuhan coronavirus came from wrong. Of course we did, because Trump said it, therefore it must not be true. I feel like this is a window into thinking that goes well beyond COVID-19.
Yeah, I think part of it is the simple notion that if Trump says up, they have to say down. If Trump says go back, they want to go forward. So whatever the reverse of Trump has to be the posture of the left and of the media in general. But I think it actually goes way beyond that because, although people are calling this the lab leak theory, Scott Gottlieb, the former FDA commissioner, has now said that there have been 6 prior leaks by China. China leaks caused the earlier SARS-1 outbreak. And so think about it. When you have repeated leaks from a lab, first of all, the question becomes, does it make sense to continue to subsidize collaborative research with a lab that is making dangerous viruses and constantly leaking them out? And the second question becomes, the first time it's negligence, maybe the second time it's negligence, but after a while, you have to ask, is there something deeper and more insidious afoot here?
We actually have the former FDA commissioner, Scott Gottlieb. You just mentioned him. Let everyone see what he says.
These kinds of lab leaks happen all the time, actually. Even here in the United States, we've had mishaps. And in China, the last 6 known outbreaks of SARS-1 have been out of labs, including the last known outbreak, which was a pretty extensive outbreak that China initially wouldn't disclose that it came out of a lab. It was only disclosed finally by some journalists that were able to trace that outbreak back to a laboratory.
Now, Dinesh, there's clearly a heightened sense of, okay, this now is an even more credible theory. When you're adding to this, that lab leaks happen in China. Oh, right, which is what some people thought at the beginning. But beyond figuring out where the last one came from, doesn't this also raise the need to figure it out because we need to prevent the next one? I mean, how can we stop, COVID 2022 or 2025 or whatever if we don't actually know where this thing came from? It feels like this isn't just a political football issue. This is actually a public safety issue.
Well, Zeke Emanuel, Biden's chief COVID guy, said, well, it's not really a matter of, what happened before. We just got to stop the next one. But you can't stop the next one until you know what happened with the previous one, because that's where you focus your measures on trying to prevent this from happening again. I think the deeper problem here is this, and that is that you've got a community of virologists who have been lecturing us now for 15 months about we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to shut this down, we got to do that. And it turns out that unknown to us, these guys were collaborating in this gain of function research. They're literally taking deadly viruses and making them more infectious, more contagious, and more lethal. And they never said a word to the public about this. I mean, it only came out because of Nicholas Wade's article and Rand Paul's questioning of Fauci. Had it not been for those things, we still wouldn't know. So the questions I want to ask are, first of all, is it the case that the people who have presented themselves as the sort of firefighters here are the ones who set the fire in the first place? That's a critically important question. It has to do with the credibility of the medical community. Leave aside the credibility of the the media, which has been collaborating in suppressing the idea of the lab leak, leave alone digital media, which has censored literally millions of posts that refer to the possibility of a lab leak. So think of the number of parties here that have become discredited, and think of the significance and the implications if this turns out to be true.